Welcome to the Crunch McDabbles Show. I'm your host, Crunch McDabbles. This is the only show that breaks down the Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules into delicious, bite-sized chunks of strategy. Today's show, the Psychic. So you wanna play a Psychic. You heard all about their signature ability, Unleash Psyche, with its big status bonus to spell damage, and you said, I'd like to get some of that damage. And since that bonus only lasts 2 rounds, just 6 precious tiny little actions, and then you turn stupefied for 2 rounds, you are going to want to plug in all the right spells and all the right abilities to squeeze every last juicy drop of damage out of it before it goes kaput. So to do that, you're going to have to plug things in, like over here you have your subconscious minds. Your subconscious mind is the underlying source of your psychic power, which you don't have much control over. And as a result, this doesn't do much mechanically. You do get a Psyche ability with it at first level, and it's an ability that can be plugged in up here while your Psyche is unleashed. And there are also exclusive feats for each of the subconscious minds that are available at level 10. And down here you have your Psychic class feats. There are a couple of Psyche abilities in here too, so you aren't just limited to the subconscious mind for your Psyche abilities. And there are also feats that kick off automatically when you unleash Psyche, and there are feats that add more spells and all kinds of things, all of which can make us more effective when we unleash Psyche. And then over here you have your conscious mind, and your conscious mind takes that raw psychic power from your subconscious mind, and it shapes it into psychic spellcasting, into spells that we can actually use. This gives you psi cantrips and spells from your conscious mind, and it gives you spells from the occult spell list. Let's take a look at Psyche abilities that you get from the subconscious minds first. And here they are in no particular order, starting with the worst. These two down here, they're both defensive, so I don't like them much. Now don't get me wrong, I love defense, but sometimes a great offense is going to be more valuable than a mediocre defense. In other words, if you can kill the monsters first, they can't kill you back. Still, there might be a good reason to use defense with this action down here. The 2 highest damage cantrips that the Psychic has are Immediately Produce Flame and an Imaginary Weapon, and these both deal nasty damage, but you gotta get up close to use them. Also, many of the abilities you get from feats are emanations, which don't let you exclude allies. So this forces you to get up close to the enemies and away from your allies if you want to use them without nailing your friends. So maybe these defensive options aren't a bad idea after all. Next we have Restore the Mind from Emotional Acceptance. While this ability is not going to add in damage, it's still interesting to me. It's a single action heal ability that is on par with other single action heal abilities like Lay on Hands and Wholeness of Body, but it's even better than those because it has a 30-foot range. The drawback is you can't use it on yourself, and you can only use it on a person once, and then they can't benefit from it again for 10 minutes, and it's only while your Psyche is unleashed. So, who wants a healer that can only heal half the time? Don't all raise your hand at once. Anybody? The thing that makes this even more interesting is that you can make this into a reaction heal if you were to pair this with the 10th level feat, No! Exclamation point. It has 3 exclamation points, and it's an unprecedented amount of exclamation points. That's how you know it's good. When combined, these give you a reaction heal when a party member gets knocked out, which is a unique ability and definitely valuable. And finally, the best here, at least in terms of damage, because it's the only one that adds in damage, Gathered Lore has the Recall the Teachings. You plop this one down in one of those actions up here, and this prepares an aid for everybody within 30 feet that you can use your occultism skill to make the aid check. That's a pretty legit ability. It's just going to add in extra damage each round by using your reaction to aid a barbarian's great club attack, or a power attack fighter, or throw an aid on a magus's spell strike, or throw it on a wizard's shocking grasp, and you can start using it right away at first level, which is awesome. Moving on to the 10th level Psyche abilities, once you hit level 10, you could take these feats depending on your subconscious mind. Here they are in no particular order, starting with the worst. The Wandering Reverie can take the feat Dream Guys. You move into someone's space, you each look the same, and then one of you can take a step action. Then creatures have to make a DC 11 flat check to target you. Now, that doesn't mean they miss you if they fail the flat check. That would be awesome. It just means they target the other one. And here's the news flash, that ogre with the great club doesn't care which one of you they target. So I'm not sure what the real benefit of this is. And it ends when either of you take an action. So unless you use this as the last action on your turn, the effect's already over before your turn even ends. You could, at least how it's written now, use Dream Guys to game the system, because you can let your ally move and it doesn't require them to use a reaction to move. So a single action gives you a stride action and gives an ally a step action all on your turn. So you could potentially let 3 of your allies move in one round on your turn, which could have some strategic benefits on the battlefield. It's definitely cool and definitely unique. But you're a psychic. Why not blast your enemies into oblivion with psychic powers? Right? Next, Impose Order. It's going to give you more damage because you get the average rounded up, which will be 0.5 more damage per dice rolled. So the more dice you roll on when you roll the damage, the better the benefit. Now, normally you might as well use that action for something else and just roll the dice and swing for the fences. This is a role-playing game, not an average rounded up playing game. That is, unless you have a dice curse. Most science people agree with me that a dice curse is a real thing. I could roll 10d6 for a channel burst and somehow only heal 7 hit points back. So I would take that feat. Emotional Surge is nice if you are focusing on spells that use spell attacks. You drop this single action in here and then add in that +2 status bonus on your next spell attack. And getting a +2 status bonus is pretty nice. And it doesn't even use a spell slot. So in that sense, I like this one. The reason I don't like this one is because Heroism is on the occult spell list already. So if you are focusing on spell attacks, you should probably already have Heroism as a signature spell and cast it heightened every combat, with a scroll or 2 in your bandolier as a backup. Being a caster that focuses on spell attacks is already at a disadvantage trying to hit armor class without an item bonus. This means you have to take advantage of every bonus you can get, and Heroism, with its fat status bonus, that's one of them. And that's what makes Scour the Library by far the best choice here. This gives you that coveted circumstance bonus to an attack roll, which is rare, or, as the kids say, recherche. You mix this with a heightened Heroism, which you cast on the first round, and you are giving yourself as much as a +5 to hit on your nasty, amped up Produce Flame or Imaginary Weapon spell attack. That is so filthy, I need to go wash my hands. Now, switching our attention to our psychic feats, at level 2 you have Psy Burst, which is a single action psyche ability. This is probably the most simple, unimaginative way to just take that single action and convert it to damage somewhere within 30 feet. A couple of problems with this. First, it's not much damage, it's only a D4 per spell level, and they get to make a basic save on top of that. That's a bad combination. And it's not a spell, so you can't even add in that status bonus to spell damage. It does have the Mind Shift trait, so maybe making this mental damage and a will save could be an advantage in some situations. At level 4, you have Violent Unleash. It's not a Psyche ability, but it does go off as a free action when you unleash Psyche. With this one, you just dealt damage in a burst, and you haven't even used an action yet, which is pretty great, but there are too many problems with this. For one, being stunned 1 defeats the purpose. We're trying to get the most out of these actions while our Psyche is unleashed, not give them away. It is interesting that this stun, since it happens at the start of your turn, but before you gain your actions, it will take effect right away on that turn, and you will only have 2 actions on the first round of Unleash Psyche. So while this looks like a free action, it ends up having the same effect as a single action anyways, which isn't necessarily bad, and you could still cast a spell because you have 2 actions left. The second problem, though, we'll keep running into this with these emanations, is that you target our allies too, so we have to use move actions to position ourselves advantageously before we unleash Psyche, which means we're going to wait and not jump right into it. So I don't know, I'd pass on this one. At level 6, Parallel Breakthrough gives us a first level cantrip from another conscious mind, and it gives you all the amp benefits that go along with it too. It's just nice that you can snab one of these cantrips from another conscious mind that might work well with your build. It's a hard call though, because at level 6, especially if you have a good healer in the party, Strained Mind is probably the way to go. Speaking of focus points, you could plug the level 8 Brain Drain into your Unleash Psyche rotation to get a focus point back, and then use it to nail out another amp psi cantrip, but it's just once a day, and you still have to roll to get the focus point back, which makes this definitely not worth an 8th level feat. At 8th level, you also have Dark Persona's Presence. It's like Violent Unleash, but it's better, mostly because you aren't stunned when you use it. Instead of dealing damage, you frighten everything within 30 feet. This is going to get a lot of monsters stuck at Frighten 1 for the entire combat, and you might even have a round with something Frighten 3, which means everybody should target that guy. You're still going to run into the problem of hitting your allies with this one, which then requires some strategy to position yourself before you unleash, but I still like this one. I definitely like it better than Violent Unleash. At level 12, you have Psi Catastrophe. It's a Psyche ability, but it's 2 actions, so it's different. It prevents us from casting a spell on that round. Also, it's not going to benefit from the status bonus to spell damage, and it's going to damage our allies as well. The thing is, it's a lot of damage. It's at D6 per character level, not per spell level, and you can still use the Mind Shift trait to target their will saves instead of reflex saves. So maybe this is good to save some resources to, the thermal detonator type of build, something like that. At level 14 with the feat Conscious Spell Specialization, you could gain extra low-level spell slots for your Conscious Mind spells. We definitely want those. At level 16, you have Wandering Thoughts. It's a free move action when you cast a spell. How awesome is that? This is going to save actions that we can use for other things. I think a lot of people are going to want the permanent fly speed at this level, but I still would take those free actions. I like Wandering Thoughts. At level 18, All in Your Head is a nice defensive reaction. You have a legendary will save at this point, so you're giving yourself a bigger bonus on the save for sure, which could legitimately save your bacon when those tough saves come up. But you also have Cranial Detonation at 18th level to start blowing things up in a chain reaction, damaging friend and foe alike. We switch our focus over to Conscious Minds. Now that we've seen all our options for things we can fill in around our spells, let's take a look at the actual spells. Here they are in no particular order, starting with the worst. The Infinite Eye. You have an uncanny psychic awareness for everything that is going on around you on the battlefield. And since you have no damaging cantrips to kill monsters, ironically, you'll be the first person to know that you are heading for a party wipe. Next, the Unbound Step. It's fun. I like it. But there's not a lot of firepower in this one either. It has Phase Bolt, so at least there is one attack cantrip, but this Conscious Mind is not a big damage dealer. If the party does have to turn tail and run, since you move really fast, you'll be leading the pack. Moving on to the Silent Whisper. Maybe I give too much credence to this targeting will saves, but I do love this Conscious Mind for that reason. I always like Daze, and an Amp Daze is much better with its D10 damage. You also have Shattered Mind for a fantastic area of effect will saves spell. I love that one. It's like a Burning Hands, but with psychic mental damage. I like it. And you have Forbidden Thought, which Amp Daze is better. I'd use Daze. Anyways, I'd use Contagious Idea to give out 10 hit points too every time I started a combat, or in any round if I wasn't sure what to do. Just dish out some 10 hit points. Everybody likes you for that. An interesting idea with the Silent Whisper might be to take a subconscious mind that has Charisma as a key ability, crank up your Diplomacy skill to the max, and use your single action to use the skill feat Bun Mo, and then hit them with the will save spell, hopefully targeting a weakened defense. And while this could add in as much as 30% more damage to your amped up Daze spell, the problem is that Bun Mo has the linguistic trait, so unless you're able to speak Jatoon, that ogre has no idea what you said and doesn't really care. When it works though, this is a fantastic combination. I would put the Distant Grasp next. The one thing Distant Grasp really specializes in are sustain spells. Sustain spells could be an interesting strategy for your psychic because it gives you a strategy for dealing with the stupefied condition, and we haven't seen anything for dealing with this yet, so let's take a look at it. The strategy is to cast a sustain spell and use your single action each round to sustain it. This action isn't going to get you the status bonus to damage when your psyche is unleashed, because sustained is technically a duration, but you are at least adding in some damage with that single action each round. And when your Unleash Psyche ends, and now you're dealing with the stupefied condition, you can keep sustaining that amped cantrip or spell with no risk of losing the spell, because the flat check to cast spells when you're stupefied affects casting spells, not sustaining them. You do get the decrease to the spell DC, but you don't have to roll a flat check to sustain a spell. And the Distant Grasp has all these great sustain spells. You could use an amped mage hand to keep pushing monsters around with your sustain action, which is awesome. And whether or not you push them, this spell gives them a 10-foot circumstance penalty to movement speed with no saving throw, which makes it great for kiting monsters. You also have Dancing Blade, which is a pretty good sustain spell for dealing damage. On your spell list, you have Poltergeist Fury, which is just great if you can't get enough of nailing your own party members with spell effects. Throw that one out there, they're going to love it. Also at 9th level, you have Implosion, which deals 75 points of damage per round, all with just one action. That's incredible. And Tangible Dream. This is the most well-rounded Conscious Mind, while still being really powerful. This one has Imaginary Weapon, which is the highest damaging cantrip when it's amped up, adding in 2d8 for each spell level heightened, and letting you attack 2 targets with that big damage. This makes the Wizard's Heightened Shocking Grasp look like a clown buzzer. This Conscious Mind has a good sustain spell too, giving you that option if you want to take it. The Astral Rain cantrip, it's not a bad spell at all. I mean, it's not that great. It's not really that good, but whatever. On the Tangible Dream spell list, you add Blade Barrier, which is usually only on the Divine spell list. What you do with this is cast it, and then take the Mage Hand cantrip with Parallel Breakthrough, and spend an action each round trying to shove the creature through the Blade Barrier, not just into it, putting them on the other side of it with a critical hit. Then they have to walk back through it again to get back to you and take that 78 force damage all over again. And finally, the Tangible Dreams Shield cantrip is just fantastic defense. This helps you get up close and drop heightened imaginary weapons on your enemies, and then when they turn and smack you back, you can use a reaction each round to mitigate the damage. And that shield spell, it mitigates so much damage. I personally guarantee that you will survive. The Oscillating Wave is all about dealing damage, and it does that really well. Produce Flame and Ray of Frost both use spell attacks, so you're going to want to cast a Heightened Heroism every combat to help land those, especially that filthy amped up melee Produce Flame with its D12 per spell level damage, and its splash damage, and its persistent damage on a critical hit, and with the extra damage from Entropic Wheel, that cantrip. I mean, how much more damage do you want to do? Come on, that's plenty. And look at all the spells that you gain on the Conscious Mind spell list. They're all fantastic too. And every one of them is on the Arcane Primal list, so you're getting all unique spells with this Conscious Mind. You have some really nice low-level damage spells, and you have Fireball, which is probably the quintessential area of effect damage spell that will add that status bonus to damage to everyone that gets affected by the Fireball. Once you hit level 13, Fiery Body is a game changer. In addition to adding another damage die, now you can cast Ray of Frost or Produce Flame as a single action, which means you have just some great damage potential here. If you want to drop 3 focus points and just spam 3 Produce Flames in a single round, you can, I guess. If all 3 of those hit by some miracle, because remember, you're dealing with the high multiple attack penalty, it could be 23 D12 plus 42 status damage plus 21 splash damage to the target and to everyone adjacent to the target, that splash damage. And I mean, where do you even get 23 D12s from? You got to make a trip to the dice store if you're playing a psychic, I guess. Of course, that's all 3 of your focus points, but that's an astonishing damage potential starting right there at level 13. And then at level 19, it would be 32 D12 plus 60 plus 30 splash damage, which is probably some of the highest single target damage potential possible. If all 3 of those attacks were critical hits, you double that damage. That is some pretty raunchy business there. Being a psychic, you really have the power to just destroy things with mental power. And while that is fun for effect, the reality of taking the 2 multiple attack penalties in this game is pretty harsh. So a more realistic approach would be to cast a saving throw spell like Redistribute Potential, or one using a spell slot like a Heightened Fireball, and then top it off with the Produce Flame. This lets you push out damage with no multiple attack penalties, and it lets you take advantage of that status bonus to damage from Unleash Psyche on both the Area of Effect spell and then again on that single action spell, which makes this a really strong use of a third action. But there is one more interesting option that a single action spell attack gives you. If you really want to boost your chances, use your Scour the Library Psyche action with your first action, then cast a True Strike with your second action, and then drop in your amped up Produce Flame or Ray of Frost attack, which gives you that big combined status and circumstance bonus to your attack, and you get to roll the dice twice and take the higher result from the True Strike. That is just a recipe for a critical hit. But here it is, the spell that you have to know about. This one is the great equalizer that all psychics have access to, no matter what their subconscious mind is or what their conscious mind is. It doesn't matter if you're a balls to the wall oscillating wave, or if you don't even have any damaging spells because you're an Unbound Step or Infinite Eye. If things get rough, if things go pear-shaped, if things go south, if your back is suddenly and unexpectedly against the wall and you need to dish out some damage in a hurry, all you got to do is Unleash Psyche and start shooting magic missiles. It's on the occult spell list. There is no attack roll, there is no saving throw, and you get that filthy status bonus to damage for each target you hit, not just once for the casting of the spell.
If you shot 3 missiles at different targets, you would apply the dangerous sorcery bonus to each of those missiles.
Which means when you spend all 3 actions casting the spell, and it's heightened up, and if you got a lot of targets, the amount of extra damage you get, that status bonus to damage from Unleash Psyche, it starts to go off the chart by comparison. Literally, I needed to go and get a new chart to map the damage. And that is it. I've been your host, Crunch McDabbles. This has been the Crunch McDabbles Show. Survive Galarian with psychic powers and magic missile.